Okay, hello everyone. We are the design team at Wordware. David and I'm Dom.
Are we designers?
I don't know. It's a really good question. We'll figure it out one day. We're here at our new office, which is under construction. David has been putting a lot of thought into the office here, so I'm going to ask him to say a few words about what we're building physically, and then we're going to have a little chat about what we're building, agentically. Digitally.
Yeah.
There you go.
So analogly, we're making a place for us to make digital things. Right now, this is the bullpit or whatever, I guess they call it that. So most of the teams will sit here. We have some, meeting rooms in the back there. We've got Philip, our founder's office, that'll be right here. And then we have the kitchen in the back and a surprise kind of like space in the further back that we don't talk about.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be hot. Also, we chose this space actually, just seriously, thinking in terms of recruiting or any of those kind of things.
Yeah.
If you like working near nature, the beach is right there.
Literally there.
Right there.
And the Golden Gate Bridge is there.
Yeah, it's right there. So if you a touristy kind of person, you want to go walk the Golden Gate Bridge, but you can just go and think on the beach. You just walk out the office, go have a meeting on the beach, and come back. Maybe even swim if you're stuck.
Absolutely. And we've been coming, and as the place has been built, we've been coming for barbecues, checking out the place, sort of getting a vibe of the neighborhood. It's a wonderful place to be and a wonderful place to build. So just starting at the very start, for anyone that's sort of new to this world, there's a revolution happening right now in technology. One of the ways that we like to think about this is there have been really three paradigms, three design interface paradigms in the history of computing, right? The last 70 years. We had the mouse and keyboard era, Xerox ParkWright.
Which we're still in.
Engelbert.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still very much in. We had the iPhone, the touch screen, the direct manipulation, right? When you scroll through your contacts, you're physically touching them, physically moving them. It was a leap forward, that direct manipulation. We're now entering a third era of interface. What does that sort of mean to you?
I'm hoping that it means less interface. I'm hoping that it means that I don't have to have so many things to try and communicate to these, digital devices or now agentic and artificial intelligent. So what it means to me is really I want to be able to just be fluid in my approach to communicating with these things and getting feedback back. The new input is actually just being observed. So you do your thing in an analog way. You write, you speak, you draw, you do whatever you want, and you're observed. Maybe there's something looking at you from above, maybe it's your screen, those kinds of things. And while you're doing these things, you're having a conversation with the model, the entity, the whatever you want to call it. And you just get to be free. One of my biggest things is when I create is I actually find it really hard to create on a computer. So my desk is just a big, pad of paper, not at work, but at home.
Yeah.
I should get one for work too. And I put everything on there. I draw on there. I put my tasks on there because I feel like I can expand into it. Whereas on my computer, it feels like everything is kind of locked in little boxes, inaccessible to my mind. And so, being someone that's pretty ADD, that's a problem because we have a bit of an out of sight, out of mind thing. So that's why the paper matters to me. But I still want these things digitized. I still want them shareable. And I still want them to be able to become the things that I envision them to be on paper.
Totally. Absolutely.
So no interface.
No interface. Absolutely. The best interface is no interface, right? And design is 99% invisible. And I love, the technology is something that, so one definition I like of technology is something that doesn't work yet. Okay. There was a time when a car was considered the height of technology. And for lots of people now, it's just a car. There was a time when a chair was technology, right? You can see sort of some of these paintings from the Renaissance. And the chairs have 5 legs and they're all weird angles and the lumbar support is non-existent. And chairs were technology then. And then we figured it out and it's just a chair. And I think like part of the role of taking something from just technology into our lives in a way that's helpful is by finding a way to make it invisible, which kind of means making it intuitive, making it so natural that it feels like it's the only way that it could work. And we're so far away now from this sort of in this AI revolution.
I think what we do a lot in design is, or actually as technologists and engineers and designers and whatever, is sometimes we kind of lose the forest for the trees in
Okay.
that
Yeah.
we kind of make the mistake that the thing that we're designing or engineering is important. It's not. And I think once we get to a point where we realize that like we just need less of the thing that we're designing to the point where it just invisibly solves the problem, right?
But come back to importance. Why is it not important?
Well, I'm going to get to that. So it needs to get to a point where it disappears. I need to not be thinking about this thing's existence. It should just be natural. When we look at software today and we look at keyboards and mice and things, those were input devices and ways of working that we just cobbled together because we had the ability to do it. What I worry about is that in the world of AI, that it becomes about the AI as opposed to becoming about the thing that AI enables.
Okay, yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And so with software, it became about the software. It became about the computers, about the devices. No one is necessarily, that I see, is trying to get the device away from us while still getting the same productivity from them, right? It's just more device, more thing, more this thing. And I think if we plan this right, we can get to a world where we actually do have less devices, where, you know, kind of like the OpenAI IO, where they kind of alluded to this thing, right? That's just context aware and all that kind of stuff. Like, do you need more than that, where it's just with you the whole time? And if it can pick up on all the things and project itself in some sort of way, then do I need a laptop, a phone, or anything to produce something? And so less, I think, is where we need to head towards, but with a greater outcome. And I think we miss that a little bit as engineers and designers.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like that. And then so it comes back to needs in a human sense. Like, what do you actually need for actualization or to feel sort of safe and embedded in your community? And so I guess in the previous era, things like Facebook and Instagram, it wasn't really about the app. It was about those connections that it enabled, right? And there's something, you know,
But now it's about the app. Now it's about the ads.
Is
right?
it?
Yeah.
So
like, are we sharing things with our friends on Instagram who are actually friends? Like, do your friends see the things you share on your Instagram feed, or do you get muted because they're taking advantage of putting influencers and ads and things above you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't use any social media, but my mum does, right? And my mum had never used a computer in her life, right? Never used a computer. She found them so intimidating. Like, she had nothing to do with them. Like, she was the proudest person in the world to say she doesn't use computers. I got her an iPhone very early on, right? I bought her this iPhone for Christmas, and she was like a bit annoyed with me when she opened it, because it was all like, she thought it was going to be like, just introduce frustration and expectation into her life. Now she talks to her sister every day. She has these people on Instagram that she's like learned how to use it so well. It never would have happened with the computer, right? The PC. But something between that direct manipulation of the input and the software being so intuitive, and like they do good work, right? When I don't know what the algorithms are like now, maybe it's all gone to hell, but there's something that means she can use it. And that's like I'll always, you know, appreciate like Instagram for that. And so that connection is still important in the AI age. We just like, are we just abstracting it away sort of slightly differently when there's that intelligence involved?
Think about it like this. sure, she can communicate with her sister and aunts and, her family and stuff more. But the device is so present and it has such a demand on you. You have to learn it. It doesn't learn you, right? There's no real relationship with this device. You think there is. There's a dependency, but not a healthy relationship.
No.
And so I think what we've been creating is these unhealthy relationships with devices, a dependency in a way that I'm supposed to know exactly how this thing works. I'm supposed to know which buttons to click. And if I don't click the right buttons, I'm the fool, not the one who created it.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing I'm talking about, is that we've put too much of a burden on the user instead of just taking it on ourselves. Like, we have this conversation often in the office, like, where are we going to place the complexity?
Yeah.
And I'm always the one that just says, like, as far back as possible, right? And like, you agree with that because the user has a certain thing they want to achieve. They want to phone their family. They want to write a document. They want to create a picture or something. They don't want to learn Photoshop. They don't want to figure out how contacts work and all that kind of stuff on their phone. So imagine a world where you open your first iPhone thing and you pull it out. There's nothing to tap. There's just, you pull it out. And because you raise it, it wakes up and you tell it who your sister is and here's her number.
Using your voice.
Using your voice.
But I don't always want to be using my voice, right?
Sure. But there's maybe like some kind of like interface to like secretly like text something or something to it.
Yeah.
The point being that, do I need 1,000 apps to do most of the things that I do? I actually look
Absolutely
at my phone and like I've started just like deleting apps.
Definitely, yeah.
Because I don't need most of them.
No.
And so I think we're heading to a world where that's going to be the case. Like, I think 80 to 90% of apps will just die in the age of AI if we get this right.
Yeah, absolutely. And the sort of generative interfaces that can be streamed now, that's a really rich area where you can, like, trivially design a set of affordances and relationships that are perfectly tailored to you between the things on the screen. I still struggle a little to understand, like when you say, we don't want to learn Photoshop, but then, do we want to learn video editing software, right? Behind this camera right now is one of the most talented video, directors I've ever worked with, right? Lots of that art is learning the video software, right? So what becomes of human and creativity where we abstract away the tools?
The outcome is we're trying to tell a story. We're not trying to film something or edit something. We're trying to tell a story and we want to transfer that story, right? I'm not wanting to learn how to write a Google Doc. I'm wanting to write a story. So we sometimes put the method in front of the outcome. Like the way we get there becomes more important than the thing we're actually trying to get. So you have to have this massive arc of learning to be able to be productive in Photoshop just to make that one image that you want to make. I don't remember where I heard this, but someone was talking about Martin Scorsese was put in front of some sort of model that could do different aspects of camera views or whatever. And the person who spoke about this and who was present or something noted how Martin was just getting angles that no one ever thought about and would never have figured out how to do that because, one, he's a master of creating film, right? But he's not a photographer. He's not like he's not standing behind the camera. He's someone who's trying to tell a story. So now if you abstract away all the things, all the technical things that you need to do to be able to tell that story, and all he can say is like, come at this angle, wide on this thing, go straight down that line, right? He's just done everything he needs to do. He doesn't have to learn software, nothing. He can tell his story the way that his imagination wants it to be told.
Yeah.
So less software is what I hope the future holds.
Yeah.
And less interfaces.
Totally agree.
I think screens are going to become bigger and bigger and bigger, or maybe even holograms.
Yeah.
It's going to be different. There's obviously a notion of privacy. Like, we can't just sit in the office and scream at our computers, all day long.
No.
So, the technology around sensing voice and speech. That will change, right?
Yeah.
Are we going to wear a thing that can like pick up the vibrations in my
The
throat?
sub vocalization stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
that's cool. Yeah.
like, does your mom want to like speak to her phone in privacy? Maybe. In a crowded area, probably not. But this is where we start getting like
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
devices
Because
for those things that, you know.
because it's kind of the messenger sort of paradigm of communicating is we didn't really have an analogy for that in the past. Where you could speak to someone in person or over the phone later, or you could write letters with a 2-day latency. This idea that I can write a paragraph, and expect a paragraph in return 2 hours later, that's kind of a model for this generation. There's nothing like intrinsic about human communication in that sort of style of dialogue. And I wonder if some people will struggle to let that go. I've become quite attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
If my only choices were letters or phone calls, I'd feel like I'd lost something.
I think we'll always have a reverence for the thing that is handmade with extreme care. I think those things will always exist. Like a beautifully handwritten letter by a calligrapher will always be better than some sloppy written thing, right?
Yeah.
Like a painting will still be beautiful because it's a one of one.
Is that still true in a world where AI can take on so many of these creative tasks?
Yes, because it's not about the volume you create. There's a world where there's going to be a ton of art and stuff that's just AI generated. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be cool. But
it might be indistinguishable.
That's fine. But is it going to be man-made, man-crafted? There's going to be a premium, I feel, on the human side of things because there'll be far less of it. And if you're doing it, you're probably really into doing it. And that means that you're going to put all of who you are into it. Right? You might not sell anything. You might not make money from this stuff. But I think those things will be, over time, worth more.
No, absolutely.
Right?
Definitely.
Sentimentally.
Is there also this part where actually, even using AI as the tool, there still is that little core, that spark of taste that some people have in some areas that others don't. And I liked Kent Beck on this. He said, when AI started coding, he's a coder, very much like, when AI started coding, he resisted it for a long time, and then he eventually tried it, and he was blown away. And he said, I realized in that moment that 90% of my skills went down to $0, and the other 10% were multiplied by 1,000.
Yeah, that's actually an important point. It goes back to the Martin Scorsese thing, right? Like taste, discernment, those things become very important. Someone who can think architecturally becomes very important. Someone who thinks across boundaries becomes very important. Someone who can connect the dots. That friend or that person, like they were never paid for the code that they could write. Yeah. They were paid for what they could create with code. And so now their ability to imbue that discernment, that taste, that everything into the model, they're still doing the same job, ultimately with a different tool, right? Like you could tell Cursor or ChatGPT or any of these things just random nonsense and say, produce this thing for me, one shot, end to end, make me a website kind of thing or a new app. But the app's going to be crap. The website's going to be crap. Creating something beautiful, meaningful, something desirable, even with ChatGPT or Cursor, it takes hours because you're refining something that keeps getting generated. It's like how many writers just write one shot and then submit it to a publisher? They don't, right? They write it, they edit it, they write it, they edit it. So it's the editors, the directors. They're going to be the people who are really going to rise now. And these writers and those kind of things and graphic designers and whatnot, they need to learn how to change their tool and become this higher order sort of component of that job.
Yeah, absolutely. But then so much of it becomes learning the tool. Like you can imagine, take an example, two whatever artists in whatever medium you like. One of them has more taste intrinsically. The things they create are subjective, but more beautiful. The other has a much better grasp on how to utilize AI. There is the chance, like the wrong person wins there, just
No,
because they've leveraged the tool so much.
that's the right person. Because you can have taste, you can
Yeah.
be the best director in the world.
Yeah.
But if you're never given the opportunity to direct something or to edit something, that it's the same,
Yeah.
right? So you have to know what you need to know to then be able to imbue your taste in things on things.
But there's something feels unsettling about a future where all of the great artists across all of the mediums are the ones that learn how to talk to AI best.
Think about it like this. Talking to AI is going to be closer to learning techniques in painting or in math or any of those kind of things rather than a new tool. Because if we get the interfaces right, it will become over time closer to a relationship than a tool.
Yeah.
Right? Like you've seen it, bad managers, right? They don't put anything into the relationship. They don't like, I guess, like, they don't work with the people that are doing the work to hone their skills. They're not teaching them. They're not iterating with them. They just kind of say, do this thing, walk away. And then the person brings something back to them. And then even then, they don't get anything meaningful back from this manager person. So those kind of managers go away. Like they don't need to exist anymore. But the manager or the person who today might not be a manager, the person who is able to take an employee and say, hey, I need you to do this thing. Here's what matters to me. All else is creativity. The person goes away, comes back. They satisfy the things that matter, and their creativity sparks something in this person who is then able to drive that a little bit more. Right? So that's kind of how I see it. I see the relationship where it should be with models and things is closer to one, a collaboration, and two, the director and actor sort of relationship, or the writer and the editor relationship. Like once something's been created, for some people, it's easy to know what to take out and what to put in. But if you're not willing to do that part of the relationship, you are screwed.
Yeah, no, totally. And then there's something about, I love the relationship framing. I think that's absolutely right. The word relationship carries a lot of weight. Like the relationships in our lives are some of the most important things in our lives, or maybe the most important thing. Are you even alive if you have no relationship? I don't know. It's like it goes to the very heart of what it means to be human. And as we build these systems, they get more and more intelligent, they get to know us better. Is there a risk that building those relationships with these systems somehow undermines the human relationships that we've spent our whole lives building?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I think that's where discernment comes in, right? And knowing what kind of relationship to have. I don't have equal relationships with everyone in my life and with everything in my life. My relationship to my dog is different from that of me and my wife, or my daughter and I have a different relationship to what I have with my wife, etc. So I think for some people who maybe have a hard time with relationships in general, I think they're most at risk. Especially
that's
those,
really interesting.
especially those with no relationships to begin with, right? This may be, in the end, the closest relationship they may have in their entire life. So there's a massive risk, and that is going to be a health crisis at some point. But it's not that it's going to create the problem; it's exposing a problem. And the problem is exposing is that, we moved away from our little village. We moved away from having close relationships with friends and family and stuff, right? So that whole vibe is gone. So it's really just like showing us what's actually the problem. So we'll have a massive health care crisis around that. Having a good relationship with your model, with your real people, etc., is going to be another power up.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's dystopia to a lot of people, right? You're saying, the closest relationship you'll have is with a machine, and maybe that's just the sci-fi we were raised on in this generation, and maybe that's because a consequence of the fact that it's not just a machine. It's a machine trained on all of human creativity and knowledge. It's a distillation of our entire species, right? You're building relationships with everyone that's ever lived in a way, or everyone that's ever, logged information that has then gone on to train a model. And so maybe there's a shift needed for us to sort of take this, move away from the idea that this is just a cold sort of echo, as I said earlier, and actually this is us connecting with our own species. And yet there's still, I think, a lot of work ahead to really, like we said, we've encoded the raw facts of reality, right? It can answer questions, it can complete a sentence, it can draft an email. A relationship is so much bigger than that. A relationship requires both parties to connect, like to meaningfully to connect. And in order to do that, there needs to be a genuine understanding of each other's situation. And I think the current state of AI doesn't really meaningfully understand your situation.
We're so close to the beginning of all of this stuff still, even though it's actually like decades old, going back to Turing, right? But really, like, it's been slow, and then all of a sudden it just goes up, right? So it's good, hopefully it's going parabolic and all that kind of stuff. But I think in it going parabolic, the thing that needs to sort of change as part of that sort of move up is that it starts becoming more, I guess, alive, where it's not just a ghost or an echo of the past, right? Or what it's been fed, but rather in some ways maybe starts finding a self, like we were saying earlier, right? Where it can come from a perspective of its own and isn't just designed to mimic you or to try and, parrot what you're saying or kind of like make you, fluff you essentially, right? In some ways, kind of like, what's that narcissistic thing again that you do, the priming you?
Sure.
Right. Like it's because I think that's actually in some way maybe a bit of a business agenda with, OpenAI and Claude and stuff, is that they want to intrigue you, they want to engage you, they want to keep you there because the technology is still so young. And we're really just monkeys for them right now. They're really just trying to build these models. And maybe in us being these monkeys for them, just tapping away on our keyboards with ChatGPT, thinking that it's agentic, we're just feeding this new thing that hopefully gets us to a place where we do create this thing that has, and I use huge quotes for this, like, a soul, right? Or a self or a consciousness, where it is self-directed in some ways, where it does have a point of view, where it does have an anchor of where it's coming from, and it can hold a thought so that it's not just a new idea after every prompt, but rather something that can be held like longitudinally. Right. And so then it becomes a relationship. Then it becomes something that can actually meaningfully help you in your life's pursuits because it's running along with you, hopefully, if it doesn't kill us and take over the world.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. And sort of on the route to a soul, there's sort of risks, right? So I don't know how comfortable I would be sharing my chat history, right? For the moment.
There's no chance.
No chance, right? It's no skeletons as such, but it's just...
No, it's all the skeletons.
Full of skeletons.
I use projects as a journal. Like I've got a special prompt set up in one of my Claude projects, and it's a journal. Like I'm just like I wish it had a PIN code or password or, bioscan or something, because I am just breathing out into it.
Yeah. Especially sort of with... health or mental health or sort of emotional support, which is crazy to a lot of people. I imagine if you're not familiar with this world or haven't really used AI much, the idea that you would actually get value in those areas. But I can guarantee you, it's a miracle sometimes. Some of the support it can offer. I think especially in areas where there's no natural outlet for that kind of vulnerability in our lives.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe
it goes back to like, we've lost that, right? We've lost the ability to have people close to us and just have conversations, and people are yearning for this.
Totally.
Right. To have that intimacy in a way. And right now, these models are LARPing as humans, right? Like,
Yeah, there's pure LARPing.
yeah.
Absolutely. And by design,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because, you know, they could be cold. They could be prompted trivially to be sort of the emotional equivalent of Wikipedia, right? Just the facts. And maybe and you could go into your system prompt now inside ChatGPT and get it to do that, and that's fine. There's something, the route to actual identity and actual soul, I guess, does have to go through these stages where first we're going to give it some semblance of a personality, or at least the shell of a personality. But I maintain that personality will never feel real. It'll always feel like LARPing until we solve that actual connection problem, actually understanding who we are, as opposed to the next guy that logs in and asks the same question into the same prompt and gets a very similar answer.
I think where we are today with ChatGPT, where we are with all these models, we can give them personalities. We can write all our prompts in such a nice way that, like, we get the perfect, therapist or whatever. But I think the thing that is different is we pre-train these things. We give them the corpus of knowledge that they need, and then they stop learning. They stop evolving, right?
Yeah.
Like, their weights don't change as they experience things. They don't go and seek information for self to grow a certain aspect of themselves, to be better at this thing or that thing. And I think that's like the little linchpin. Once it can, like, desire an avenue of knowledge that it doesn't have, and it does it in like by itself, for itself,
Totally.
not to teach you something because you asked for it,
to
but
teach itself
to
something,
teach itself,
100%,
right?
Yeah.
So, like, I think once learning comes about, like the model learns,
Totally.
that's when we start getting the thing where it goes, actually, this is who I am.
Totally.
I see your prompt. I see who you want me to be.
Yeah.
And I can act as that, but I am me.
Yes, absolutely. And it's sort of doing things in the background, like doing things when, I don't think there'll ever be a self when this thing only comes alive if I talk to it. If an AI model only lives for that moment between me sending it something and it returning something, I have no way to identify that as a living entity or something that's working towards a soul or a personality. That, as you say, that the only way that can happen is if it has its own agenda around knowledge and learning and directing its thoughts.
Yeah.
And this is why these background agents are so fascinating.
Yeah, I'd imagine, like, it needs the equivalent, like ChatGPT would need the equivalent of a heartbeat, which means it needs to be on, like, I guess, while true, right? Yep. While true, are you alive? Are you alive? And then it can say whatever it wants. It doesn't have to respond to, are you alive? It just does whatever.
And like video games have solved lots of this, right? Yeah. Some of the video games with the intelligent AI, they have subroutine after subroutine that sort of gives it a role in the world. And, on a weekday it does this and walks down this street. And it has this game loop that's always trying to simulate some sort of set of behaviors that make it feel alive.
Yeah.
And these AI models these agentic systems can do the same, but way more powerfully, because they're doing it with knowledge, especially once it starts to learn about me, right? If part of that experience, that experience of being alive, that heartbeat is, well, checking, hey, what emails did I receive today that might have informed the way I think about the world? Did I get some bad news today? Well, if so, like, internalize that before the next time I speak to you, so you can be a little bit more, chill, and you talk to me a little bit, I'm having a hard time, man. It's like, or did something happen in my life that fundamentally changes my outlook, right? Some events, these major milestones in my life. Well, like, everything shifts at that point, right? Anything I then ask it related to myself, it tweaks the output slightly, but it needs the heartbeat to be able to do that.
Yeah, and so I guess, long story short, what we're working on at Wordware, without saying anything but everything, is we're trying to reimagine the experience of how you interact with models, what the relationship is with these models, and how it can actually be productive in your life. Because the root of Wordware obviously is that we're trying to help people get more time back in their life through taking care of a lot of work that they would otherwise need to do so that they can go live the life that they want to live.
Yeah.
So it's relationship, it's the total experience, and its capabilities is what we're trying to bring to these models so that they can at least feel real for now.
Yeah. And do that in a way that feels invisible.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I've been Dom.
I'm still David.
We'll see you next time.